At this time, we'll call to order the regular meeting of Plan Commission. This is May 28, 2024. Kelly, roll please.
Mayor Boyd.
I'm here.
Citizen Member Bush.
Here.
Alderperson Gantz.
Here.
Alderperson Hanson.
Here.
Citizen Member Higgins.
Here.
Citizen Member Raymaker.
Here.
Citizen Member Schilling.
Here.
We've got a full house here. Well done. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the April 22nd, 2024 Plan Commission meeting.
I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Brenda. Discussion or comments? Seeing there are none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3, discussion on the draft conceptual layout for lands recently acquired by the City of De Pere, currently located in the town of Lawrence. Parcel ID numbers L481, L517, L520, L521-1. This agenda item is for discussion only, and no formal action will be taken. Dan.
All right, thank you. The item in front of you tonight is a conceptual discussion among staff as well as yourselves to go through conceptual layout for and themes, I guess you would say, for the lands that we recently acquired in the town of Lawrence. So before I get into that one, I kind of just want to give a brief overview and summary. I know it doesn't look brief, but I'll kind of walk you through the through the steps here. Pre-2000, the subject area that we're talking about here today, known as the Turf property, or formerly known as the Turf property, was either a farm field or actually a driving range at some point. It kind of transitioned back and forth over its life. In early 2000s, the city and the town were in a bit of a contentious situation and were court ordered to enter into a boundary agreement with each other. So in 2003, we entered into a boundary agreement with the town of Lawrence that was just very loose to meet the stipulations of the court order as well as the recommendations from Brown County. In 2004, that boundary agreement was amended to include some trade-off areas to be detached from the City of De Pere, put back into the town of Lawrence, areas that could be brought into the City of De Pere without objection, and that is the case that we're looking at, one of those areas. So the area that we're talking about here was added to the unobstructed, or what I'm calling the unobstruction annexation area, meaning that the town will not object if the property owner wishes to annex. In some cases, they may wish to object if you don't have a boundary agreement. Well, in this case, we are now the property owner, so I don't think the property owner will be objecting to annexation into the City of De Pere. So we worked with the property owner, and I'll get to that here in a second. But in 2008, the town of Lawrence constructed a lift station just south of this area to serve what's known as the Carpenter's Crossing and Orion Run subdivisions. I'll show those on the map here in a second. From 2008 to 2016, those subdivisions filled up, which is something to be said because there was a recession in there. And then from 2008 to 2022, and even a little bit today here yet, is on our side of the city boundary. Garrity's Glen and Garrity's Glen South were under construction and have been filling up. So Garrity's Glen South being our subdivision that was built in 2020, and then it's been filling up over the past few years. 2021 and 2022, American Boulevard was extended, and Georgia Pacific came in and built their warehouse without city request for financing assistance, but we built the road. And then in 2023, the Turf family, the former owner of the property, approached the city, knowing the fact that this land was in a boundary agreement, and requested the city take a look at if we were interested in purchasing it. Knowing the fact that we have a housing shortage and wanting to add more residential to our community, knowing the fact that our business park properties are highly sought after, especially Southern Bridge announcement, and knowing that this area is in our boundary agreement, we found this as an opportunity to go after, and including using some TID funds to go after it because it is immediately adjacent to and would be annexed or added to a tax increment district. So in 2023, we negotiated and the council approved the purchase of the about 75 to 80 acres of the balance of the property. And then in 2023 to now, staff has been working with Robert E. Lee, our contracted consultant, to go through review the wetland delineations, review the site analysis, review a slew of information to help sort of create a game plan for how the site could be developed. You think a field that is relatively flat could be developed fairly easily, but you do need grade elevation for gravity, sewers, and stuff like that. So there has to be some care and thought put towards where those elements are as well. So What you have in front of you, I'll walk you through tonight, is kind of is the culmination of that to a conceptual discussion here tonight. So as I mentioned, I'm going to come back to that one here. Here's in 2000, you kind of see 2005, not much has changed. All of a sudden, then we hit 2010, and we start to see some pressure from the south. In the area that we're talking about, you can hard to see on the screen here, but it's outlined in red. Wish I would have made that line a little bigger. Start to see some pressure from the south. This is the Carpenter's Crossing subdivision. This is the Orion and Orion Second plat. You can sort of see the underlying parcels there that exist today, but at the time weren't there. You start to see that subdivision pop in, and then Garrity's Glen subdivision to the north is starting to happen in 2014. 2017, this subdivision is pretty much built out. We're starting to see some pressure, and then 2020 happens. We work on building our components of the new Garrity's Glen South subdivision, and again, we see some pressures to the north. And then we hit 2023, subdivision filled out, warehouse subdivision filled out, and we have this land that's sitting in between development pressures from the north and the south. So now it's time to fill that gap, I guess you would say, with some development. So as we look forward to this one here, the reason why we're here today to talk a little bit about it is because there's a lot of steps in the process. We are probably of those bullet points there, probably in between the second and third bullet point of many things to come to make a development happen. So we'll be presenting tonight to kind of determine the support. We'll revise the site plan and the concept plan based off the comments from the Plan Commission. We'll then look at preparing funding recommendations or discussions for the finance and personnel, whether or not we want to be the master developer of this like some communities have done, or do we want to RFP the entire subdivision or blocks of the subdivision off to somebody else to do, provided that there's certain design parameters in place. We'll also then prepare discussions with the town of Lawrence for infrastructure, because there are infrastructure connections into the town, which were planned, but we do want to make sure we start those discussions about when some of those things should happen. We'll look at the low quality wetland fill determination. You'll notice that there are some wetlands on the area that the roadways cross into. Those are wetland fill areas that we will likely request so that we can build those roads. We'll be looking at then a combination CSM to Brown County so that they combine them all into one parcel after we've gotten the approvals for the wetland fill. And the reason for that is you get a certain amount of square feet per parcel. And then we'll be looking at annexation into the city with a single parcel with establishing some permanent zoning in place. We'll look at the formal ADP at that point, which is establishing the road network, and then working during that process. That will be a public engagement process as well. Looking at then a TID 12 boundary amendment, and then preliminary plat and kind of ownership structure discussion. So there's a lot of steps involved here. This one was not noticed to the general surrounding population, about a 300-foot notice like we would normally do for a rezoning. And part of that is because it's not in the city of De Pere at this point. And so it's a little too premature to go out and say, hey, we're going to rezone this property, because it's not even in the city here at this point. So to follow our standard process, this is only a conceptual discussion. As we get further along in the process, more of the general public will be involved. The reason why it's a little different is we're acting as a quasi-developer in this case, just like we would for a business park property. So it follows the comprehensive plan, which I'll go through here in a second. But
Dan, just out of curiosity on that page, I noticed there's no dates,
yeah,
target dates
yeah.
tied to anything, but realistically, I mean, what kind of a time period are we?
I'd like to have an annexation into city by the end of the year, if not sooner than that. The quicker we can go on things, obviously, the better, because it is a TID-related project, and TIDs have a certain lifespan. So our goal is to get it in as soon as possible, but because of the importance of the wetland fill requirements, you want to have a concept plan that is realistic first before you start annexing and bringing things in, because you want to use you get 10,000 square feet per parcel, and then before you annex, we have 5 parcels here. We have 50,000 square feet that we could potentially get permitted to fill for roadways, and so it's appropriate to find the best solution to do that first. So, and I call these low quality wetlands because they're not connected to any streams. They're not connected to, these are lowland farmland depressions where their drain tile that is already in the field just wasn't keeping up with. So it's, like I said, it's the lower quality. It's not, like I said, not connected to any streams or habitats and stuff like that. It's been farmed. So there was field disc going over it last year. So, I mean, so.
Real quick, before we go any further, any questions? Because I hate to do this because you have a lot of information here that you guys have right now before we go forward. Nothing about what he's going to talk about going forward. You guys all good? Good question.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Keep going.
All right. So as we move forward here, I have a couple things out here. I'll go through the layout in general, but I wanted to kind of show you where it is on the site map. So you see here we are. Don't look at this side of the page right now. Comprehensive plan is important because we want to make sure that we're roughly following our comprehensive plan. And when I say roughly, is because when you get into undeveloped areas, the plan boundaries aren't hard and set. As long as it's attached or adjoining a neighboring zoning district or a neighboring land use, you're applicable to kind of move that boundary line across. In your more developed areas where you have land already there, it's already been developed, those are a little bit harder to say, okay, this was meant to be this. Now, you try to plan the best as you can, but as development happens, things change. And so you see on the screen here, in our 2010 comprehensive plan, the single family portion was roughly here, and the business park portion was a significantly larger chunk of that. What that didn't anticipate, though, is where the actual layout of American Boulevard would be. And because of the Georgia Pacific situation, because of the town of Lawrence's lift station that you see, it's this little black dot right here, we have an existing road, and we have a road that we have to hit. So kind of draw 2 points in a straight line, you roughly know where American Boulevard is going to go. And so at this case, that would leave, if you kind of take a transitional point of where existing residential kind of goes, if we put more business park properties here, kind of putting more pressure on the side of a road which tends to have a little bit more of a challenge to sell because it does butt up against residential. So in this case, what we'll be talking about here is moving this yellow, I guess you would say, closer to the American Boulevard side with some buffering and a variety of other elements there. So it is in line with the comprehensive plan. And again, as you get to the undeveloped areas, it's a little bit more fuzzy than it is the developed areas, and that's applicable. So what are we proposing here? I'm going to call this traditional neighborhood development light. Traditional neighborhood development is just what that sounds like, is if you walk out your door right now, out here, and we see the subdivisions that are behind us, you know, the alleys, the narrow lots, where you have duplexes on corners. You may have a fourplex over here. You may have Mac Dental is sitting over there with a commercial use in the middle of a neighborhood. You may have a variety of these things. Traditional neighborhood developments these days are mirrored after that. They're taking the concepts that were in place when we had a very cohesive society where we all walked our neighborhoods, our garage doors didn't go up and they didn't go down, and we never saw our neighbors. We tend to see that more these days. You had projections out into the public with your front of your home being your home and not your garage. So you take a look at trying to provide an opportunity to do that again. Now, the reason why I'm calling this one light is because in traditional neighborhood development, you also have more neighborhood level commercial, you have little town centers, you have a variety of other elements. If I go back to our comprehensive plan, that's roughly what these areas, these node areas that you see on the east side are talking about. This is where you have more commercial nodes at some areas, and then you have residential radiating out from there. We're trying to do this as a test case here. One, because construction pricing is going higher and higher, so the cost to actually build subdivisions is harder and harder. So lots are getting smaller, and people are maintaining less of a lot or less of land and less of yards these days. And then we can potentially replicate this model post Southern Bridge or Southern Bridge time on the east side when we're south of Rockland Road, where we have several hundred acres prime and ready for development. And Mark sits on our steering committee of what we've talked about for the Plan Commission that we put on hold for our comp plan. But that's roughly what we're talking about for the comp plan process, is kind of creating that neighborhood level kind of mini town center in the southern part of our community. Because right now, everybody travels north to get to downtown, and we have one central area, but everybody in our south is sort of void of commercial services, daycares, and a variety of other things because all the services are either north or on the highway. So trying to provide an opportunity on that side of the river at that time. So we're using this smaller lots, intermixed of residential types as a test case and model for that area, so that when future development happens on that side, we can say this works, or we need to modify it a little bit to that side. So you saw in my packet that this is kind of like a pilot case or a traditional neighborhood light. So any questions on that before I get into what's in the actual concept?
Everyone good? Yeah, it's exciting.
So as I mentioned, traditional neighborhood development includes a variety of housing types, densities, prices, ownership styles, tenant situations, building styles has really become it's almost like a form-based approach, meaning the look of the homes and the structure of the homes is almost just as important as the actual homes, the uses themselves as single family, multifamily. You have an interconnected pedestrian scale, sidewalks, pathways, and streets. And then also, as I mentioned, just you have a mix of uses, but that's not what we have in this case here. It's primarily residential. So, if I took our existing zoning code and overlaid it on top, which I'm not saying we're doing tonight, I'm just saying if we were to do it upon annexation, this is roughly what our concept looks like. We have some duplexes that are in this kind of orangish color here. The darker browns would be multifamily, and you'll notice that two of these actually aren't even on our city property. This is the G&G Rebuilder site, and this is a property that is owned by Georgia Pacific, and we've been in negotiations or just talks with Georgia Pacific to see if we could acquire this for some purpose to incorporate into this project. You start to see some lot sizes that are smaller lot sizes than what you're typically used to seeing in current subdivisions of 80-foot wide lot subdivisions. As we adopted our brand new zoning codes, we were encouraging people to go down to 45 with alleys. That's what we're doing here. You have some the R160s, and then you also have some green space and common open space with berms, stormwater ponds, walking trails, and the like. So if I go through it on the screen, I've sort of highlighted each one of these uses and brought them out. You're looking at stormwater on the northeast corner. This is that Georgia Pacific parcel. They have expressed not to have a residential use on their property, so we put stormwater and a berm there because they didn't want to deal with the neighbor complaints like they had previously dealt with in the past. So by proposing a stormwater pond and berm, it potentially allows us to add some buffering to them and then also not use as much space on our property that we currently own for stormwater. So we're better maximizing our property. You take a look at berm on American Boulevard here, so some green space and a berm, again, primarily there to act as a buffer space, but may be used for something in the future if ultimately necessary. You see some outlots. This is, again, a pocket wetland. This one is actually kind of a larger one that we anticipate having to stay, and some other wetlands that are surrounding here with a walking trail. There's an opportunity for a pocket park in here, small playground with an opportunity for families to walk to the pocket park, and then opportunities for a trail network to get it right up to Southwest Park, which is just off the screen right here. So we have sidewalks. Why not use them to get to our parks? So that's what you're seeing for the open space. 45-foot wide lots with alleys. You can see how those kind of lay out central to the plan, and then we have sort of 50 plus over here and 65-foot wide over here. These would be with garages in front, typically 2-stall garages in this case, or if you have a deeper one, you could put the garage in the back with a driveway around it, just like we see in our neighborhoods here. And so what does that look like? Not new around here. I will say you see some, this is actually in Howard right now behind the YMCA. That's what you're seeing here. And these are other examples, several located throughout the state and several located in New York. I just provided some examples because we don't have traditional neighborhood development, current new subdivisions here. So I was trying to find some examples of what it looks like. But it is all over the state. And again, here's where you have a garage in the back. It is connected to the house, smaller lot, you have less to mow, but you also have greater green space in your neighborhood. Duplex lots, you can see here, we're sort of wrapping them here. There is one more up here, it's questionable, and I just kept it off for now. But you have about 6 duplex lots. What does that look like? It could be any number of things. You could have a corner lot duplex, you could have a side-by-side duplex. Again, these are in Howard right now. Again, narrow lots. These are actually 0 lot line duplexes. So there is an actual lot line that runs right here on each one of these. So these are, again, located behind the YMCA. Townhomes. Again, trying to add more variety of density to the subdivision. And so you take a look at some of the townhomes that sort of buffer to the parks as well as use up some of the spaces around the wetlands that are typically harder to do. What do those look like? Here's some examples of townhomes. Again, a couple New York examples, a couple area examples. This is a Madison example. Again, just showing roof lines that match with your character neighborhood, but can be duplexes or 0 lot line townhomes or rental townhomes, all of one lot. Again, ownership situation can vary. and we move into the multifamily, it's shown on here as 3 stories. Again, it could be 2. It could be what I refer to typically as the Green Bay box. You tend to see a lot of them around here, which is the Lexingtons, the tune-in properties, those the best built, those kind of 2-story ones with the attached garages, or you could do a 3-story. And this is typically going to require an underground parking, which would have a higher value, but also likely a TIF request to go along with it. But again, roof lines that match the neighborhood and balconies. And then we have the business park property on to the east of American Boulevard. Purpose behind that is, again, to kind of continue our business park growth. We previously had this shown as 3 smaller lots with 1 larger lot in back. I'm not going to want to project lot lines until we get a true feel for who wants to be there. Right now, our large lots are selling and our small lots aren't. It's just the nature of what it is right now. We have a lot. People are looking at building bigger at this point. If you look at American Court, those are 1 to 2 acre lots. Those just aren't selling. I've been trying Millennium Boulevard. Millennium Court. Same thing. Some larger or some smaller lots, just not selling. So I'm a little reluctant to put 2 acre lots out front here, just to have them sit and then have somebody come in and we kind of shoehorn ourselves away from a larger project. Especially when you looked at building a berm and we can require that parking be one side or the other so that, again, we're protecting the neighborhood. So that's the business park that we see there. And then that's available for discussions. That was my big overview for more information I probably could have given you.
Wow. No, it was brought up, and I'm not sure if we brought it up here, where some of the TID money that we captured at the end of a closure could be used for some affordable options within this. Do you want to kind of discuss that a little bit?
I was waiting for the question. I didn't want to tee it off there. I figured it was going to come from you or our older person, Hanson's.
Well, I took it from him. So what are we thinking on that potentially, which would also be kind of a pilot type thing?
Yeah, so
We're pilot people.
one of the challenges that organizations like NeighborWorks and Habitat for Humanity run into is the cost of a lot has become too much for them to overcome. And so typically they get the last of a subdivision because the developer just wants out of it. It's the hardest lot to develop. It becomes more of a challenge. At this point, we set aside funds in our TID number 6 affordable housing extension for affordable lots in subdivisions purchases, i.e. we could use that fund to save 5 lots, 6 lots, however many lots in here we want, and capitalize that into our pro forma here and say the lost revenue from those sales can potentially be overcome by taking money out of that pool to make this work, and then reserve them for them to purchase at their maximum price point. Their maximum price points range between $20,000 and $25,000. Right now, a lot in a typical subdivision is going to cost you $60,000, $70,000. And again, it's if you want a decent one.
So it's just not achievable.
It's just not achievable. That's usually why they get the last one, where it's the hardest, it's got the most encumbrances, and it becomes a challenge. So
So we have that. The amount of money is how? 1 point?
the total that we captured from the TID 6 closure was about 1.9 million.
Yeah, so it's a sizable amount.
We put money into the Affordable Housing Stock Improvement Program, which at a later date, Koyson and I will come back to the Finance and Personnel Committee to make some changes to it to actually get it better utilized following Rock the Block. Rock the Block was one of those programs that we did. Upper story activation is another one, which we'll probably come back to request closure of that one because the state came out with a better program than we did. And then this one. And then also if we wanted to do affordable housing in multifamily projects. So we put money in those buckets, but those monies can be moved around upon council approval.
And I'm very intrigued by that, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. But, I think that's an exciting opportunity to try to help that segment that we've been looking to help. It still means that Habitat's got to purchase the lot, but it'd be at a much cheaper price, a much lower price.
And the
That
lots
would
in
be market
general
value.
will also have a lower price. These lots being smaller, if I did it based off of a per square footage of what you're seeing for lots right now, a 45-foot wide lot with 105-foot depth at $8 to $9 a square foot, it's going to be about $35,000 to $40,000 a lot, which is less than the 60.
Much better.
Yeah, than your 60, 70, 80 that you're seeing right now to get a lot. Now, obviously, you are getting more space and you're getting your own private space, but you're also typically not then getting this level of green space in your subdivision.
I love the alley concept as well, too, so I'm not sure. Again, you guys just jump in whenever, but I grew up on an alley in old De Pere, and then Shopko took it down. So that's also very intriguing. So these are really interesting concepts. Now, he did throw something out, which I'm sure he wants some kind of direction on. Do we want to be in the developer business? Is a pretty big question. Or we want to put it out to RFP or do a performa and all that kind of stuff. We're not currently in the developer business, are we? In any projects? Have we been?
Not that I want to be, but we may be in the future when it comes to doing some affordable housing downtown if we can't get.
In that respect, yes. So
that
we have something out there right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we've never done our own subdivision like this
Our own
before.
subdivision.
Village of Howard has Spring Green subdivision that they did several years ago during, I think, right after the pandemic, or not pandemic, right after the recession. They did one years ago.
They did one there.
Yep.
Alderperson Gans.
How soon would this start, the whole project?
Well, you'd be looking at a 2025 build of infrastructure, and then you could start selling lots while infrastructure is being built, as long as it's platted.
So pretty soon. I mean, really.
We wouldn't do the
Yeah.
we likely wouldn't do the whole thing at once. That's part of what we would be doing, is entering into likelihood if we were to be the developer, we would then likely enter into negotiation with a broker realtor for ourselves that represents us, because I don't think Tony or I want to handle that many land sales. And then those have to be run through the city here. As long as we set the price points and set the contract up with a broker, they could potentially manage that process for us. And then they could start handling that as we go. We would probably also then start to engage the expertise of our own engineering department, our development services staff, our Robert E. Lee, and the consultant or the brokerage or realtor firm that we'd be using. We'd be talking about phasing. Do we do it all at once? Do we do multiple phases? How do we go? Where do we start and go from there?
What does your gut tell you? Which way would you want to go? Do you
Well,
want to
this
be
is
in
a-
that business or not in that business?
This will be a conversation for finance and personnel.
So we can wait on that one.
Yeah.
We don't need that right now.
My preference would be to see if we could find one master developer so that we don't have to do it. I would
Okay.
rather RFP
That's-
for development first, knowing the fact that we've set the stage for them and done the entitlement process, and say, hey, here's what we want. We've done the entitlement
Yeah.
process for you. We know that you're likely going to require TIF assistance to make this work because of the more infrastructure. Yes, you are getting more lots, but you're also building more infrastructure. We are also adding sidewalks and more trails. We know that. Some of this is TID eligible expense because it's regional stormwater. So we know that there's likely going to be a affordable or a TID component to this one. And we're relatively in support of that one because it is offering greater density than a typical subdivision.
Sure. I mean, it's exciting. Like I said, it's very exciting. Yeah.
So my preference would be to put out an RFP for a master developer first. If we can't find one, I would RFP for blocks second. And then if we still can't get somebody willing to do what we want to meet to show that this can work or doesn't work, then we start to do it ourselves.
I would think someone would want to
Yeah.
take a bite at this.
I
one,
will-
right?
Dan,
Correct?
I would.
Oh, I know there are.
I would second that if we were at that point, but,
Yeah.
so many
The hard part
situations
is,
that I've seen where municipalities or get involved in these types of projects, you want well experienced developers, doing these, and like the one in Howard, or, we've had a number of them coming up from southern part of the state to
that's
do
the
some projects.
challenge that we ran into when I was looking at projects around here, is not to say we don't have a experienced development community, because we do, but they know what their bread and butter is. They know how to make money, they know how to do it, and you're going to still continue to get the 85-foot wide lots, 3-car garages, where the garage takes up 55% of the front facade. So when you drive down the street, what do you see? Garage, 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 garage,
Right.
garage. And if we want to sort of change and bring back neighborhoods back to our neighborhoods, this is a way to do it and kind of incorporate this concept. And as Mark mentioned, this is not new to the state. It's done in other parts of the state. It just hasn't been truly brought in here. Centennial Center in Hobart is a good example where they brought good urban design back when they tried it. Now again, over time that sort of changed a little bit, but those apartments that are right on those L-shaped apartments right on the boulevard, also the multifamily, the single family there, the duplexes, they all do quality urban design. But again, it was a master planned area for much larger acreage, which is what again we'd be looking at post Southern Bridge. But I know there are others outside of the area who are interested in taking on something like this.
Have you gotten feedback from the Village of Howard and like the Spring Green, the one that they did on their own?
They wouldn't
Did
do it
work
again, but it worked well for them.
well? Okay.
They don't, and Paul's brought it up a few times, their administrator, during our municipal partnership meetings, and they wouldn't want to do it again. Obviously, they've also built their own multifamily now. So right now, they're going gangbusters on your traditional subdivisions, and so that's what they're at right now. But post-recession, they wanted to jumpstart things a little bit. We jumpstarted things post-recession by being one of the first to implement the residential infrastructure policy that we have here. So we're able to fund infrastructure projects that other communities didn't do. People jumped on our bandwagon afterwards. So we've been a leader in some areas in the past, and so this is potentially an opportunity to kind of do that again.
Pamela?
I was going to ask if we developed it, how it worked, but you already answered that. So I think it's a great idea. I really like the community part of it, where you have a little diversity in the property. So I like that a lot. You said it's a pilot program. Would we possibly do another one on the east side?
The target would be to work with those landowners to establish the master plan for that east side before Southern Bridge is done. And we have a concept plan that's well on the way for that one. And we have quite a few acreage, and we have one developer who's itching and ready to go, and the rest of them are family owners who are understanding that eventually, when that comes, it's just not a matter of if the development will happen, it's when the development will happen.
Yeah, I think what this does is just kind of give them that general direction, you know, that, hey, we're kind of on board here, knowing things can go in many different directions, and we obviously have multiple steps to go, but at least it gives them a general, hey, the Plan Commission is, you know,
Yeah.
good with this, at least first kick at it, because it is unique.
Unique.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think the concept fits with some of the trends that are going on out there, I guess. You know, do we have, I mean, good, solid data that,
Oh, yeah.
you know, as far as absorption time periods and things like that, that we can,
Yeah, our subdivisions that we built 3 subdivisions last year, or a year and a half ago. We built 3. We're averaging 70 lots a year. And so by those 250 that we built a year and a half, over the past 2 years, roughly, I guess you'd say 2022 to 2023 was when they were built. We will likely be out of those lots, except for the preserve, which is, that's a builder exclusive subdivision, so it's a little bit more of a challenge on those ones. We'll be out of those lots probably within the next year and a half. And then we won't have anything on the west side again.
that's amazing. What are the risk management issues on a project like this?
Well, it's providing a product, I guess you would say, and working with the broker agent to figure out the appropriate marketing component to this one. That's our biggest component, because that's not what we do. I can give you all the data. Our housing study draft report actually comes out in the next month. So that'll be up for public comment here shortly. We can give you all the data. We can give you all the actual construction pricing. We can do all those things because we do the engineering design. We do the components. We can see how much every lot sells for. We can kind of market those things. But the actual implementation of a 3-year absorption rate, 3 or 4 year absorption rate is just not something that we have handle on. So that's our biggest unknown, is the actual selling of lots. We can do all
You're
the
not
other
staffed
aspects.
for that.
Yeah. It's just not our experience.
From a timing standpoint, this smaller parcel makes a lot of sense to get into a new and innovative, and I love the idea, before going across the river on a much larger project. You'll have a look at how this goes as you build your timeline and say, this is well received, these do sell, the mix is right, or we need to tweak the mix. You're inevitably going to learn some things, right? And you want to learn that on a smaller bite of the apple, on a smaller, not that this is small, but it's smaller in comparison to what's on the other side of the river. So I think that from a timing standpoint, it makes great sense.
The one thing that is interesting to us in De Pere is most communities, when they try to do this, it's either done through a planned development district or a PDD, or now we have PUDs here. It's usually done through that because their zoning code isn't flexible enough to offer this. we wrote our zoning code to actually do this. And so we're actually proposing to do this without even having to do a PDD and just use standard zoning, which means unless we want to add material requirements to a building that says you need 35% brick on certain floors, you need to do this, we potentially don't even need to do that. Our zoning code is right and ready to go, that the entitlement process is a lot quicker for a developer than it is if you had to go through PDD process. So kudos to you guys and the council for approving a zoning code that provides you with the opportunity to do that.
And to bring in a developer to, I mean, it's laid out there.
Yeah.
Clearly, so there's not gray area that you're building as you,
Yeah.
or creating as you go.
By the way, I also mentioned the boundary agreement, which expires in a couple of years.
Yeah.
So this was actually very fortunate that this kind of fell in our lap right here, and someone approached the city. I want to emphasize that. Someone approached the city about an annexation request, so who knows who else is out there. The question you're going to have is, are we going to have another boundary agreement? We don't know that yet, so.
Yeah, so the document was approved in 2003. The 2004 amendment listed a 25-year time frame on it.
25? Okay.
So I don't know if that references the 2003 original document or the 2004 amendment. So it could be 2028-ish is the expiration of the boundary agreement.
Very good. Alderperson Hanson.
Yeah, Dan, what do you anticipate would be the average square footage of the homes on the R45 lots? One of the questions I get from constituents once in a while is, why are all the homes 1,800, 2,000 square feet? Can we go back to more 1,200 square feet homes? So just wondering what your sense is in terms of the average square foot size.
Yeah, in my performa, I have them up to 1,800. Meaning if you did a finished basement, two-story like this. And the examples that you're seeing here, this, if you did a finished basement, would up you more. But this is 1,650, I think, maybe a little higher. Again, sort of the 1,700. Again, some of these ones are a little smaller. Again, so it all depends on the product type. 2 stories will get you a little bit more, obviously. But yeah, that's, again, you get the typical salt box style, craftsman style, a whole variety of styles you can implement here, but the floor plans can be roughly the same. That's one of the unknowns of how we go through this process is as we create the entitlements, do we create a pattern book for developers to follow and say, here's your style of construction you can use,
Build it and they will come.
and you can pick from these floor plans, or do we have the master developer, if they go that route, say, you need to provide these types of things, and so it makes it easier, so.
And either will, hinder possibly who decides to help us
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all comes with, nothing's going to be easy. Were you done? I'm sorry.
Would the R45 lots with the alleys, would they still have 2-stall garages?
That's what you're seeing here. These are about 45-foot wide lots. Here's a 2-stall garage.
That's good.
And here's a 2-stall that's 45-foot wide, and it's actually got a double, or two singles versus a double. So it all depends on how it's designed. If you look at these ones here, again, you can see that the majority of the picture is taken up by the home, versus here, this is the front, this is the back. So, and there's typically a breezeway or some connection point that connects the two. It looks detached, but if you look at it from an air photo, it's not.
Oh, that's connected? Like, so, okay.
Yeah, you're not going to want to build a detached garage as your only garage these days. That just not in Wisconsin. It's
No. True.
not going to sell very well.
And last question, are there any R180 lots? in this? It
If
didn't look like it. but-
there's not on there, but if somebody bought two and combined them, I guess
Okay.
they could. But at this point, our 65 is the biggest on here. Actually, I have
Or
another-
60?
I don't have Brule Road.
The duplexes are a little bit
Oh,
bigger.
yeah, that's
but,
right.
Yeah.
2/3 of an acre. I was trying to think of my lot size on Brule Road, what that would be as far as,
Yours?
yeah,
Your home's probably 10,000 square feet. Your lot,
10,000 square, okay.
What is that?
quarter acre.
Just trying to wrap my head around.
I can tell people, everybody. I'll zoom right to your house, Mayor, if you want me to.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead and zoom.
I know exactly where you live.
Oh, good Lord. Everyone seems to, both good and bad.
All right, the mayor.
House is on
So
fire, they should be there very quickly.
That didn't sound good.
all right,
We just
Mayor,
had a
your
hotel on the street,
so Mayor, your lot, because you have your lot is about 92 feet wide. So take it, kind of cut it in half.
Uh-huh.
Because you have a lot of green space on both sides of you. Plus, you have a kind of what looks like a salt box style house roughly with
Yep.
a garage attached to it.
Yep,
2-car garage, I assume?
yes.
Yeah. So if you can pretty much if you cut off the garage and put it to the back, that would be roughly.
Roughly what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just to kind of wrap our heads around
When we
it.
got rid of alleys years ago because it was too costly for infrastructure and for stormwater and for snow plowing and all this stuff, it became a challenge. But if you design an alley appropriately so that it doesn't become the dead spots with dead ends and you actually make interconnected alleys, they're not a problem. But if you make dead end and alleys, nobody likes a dead end because no plows like it, no mail likes it. No.
And we just rehab some alleys back here, which are much easier to maintain, correct?
Yeah, if you go straight through an alley and you make connection points, that's what you see in here. There's no dead end alleys for that reason. It's so that plow can pass right through. Okay, your total lot is 0.254 acres. Look at that.
Is that what you said?
That's
Wow.
off by 4/1000ths of an acre.
0.25 acres. Wow, I thought it was more than that. You can give me more. No, I don't want you to give me more than that.
That's
No.
what Dan said.
Way overly assessed.
Quarter of an acre, Dan said.
I said quarter of an acre. I was off by 4/1000ths.
Wow, very, very impressive.
I
know
know
some-
everything about you, Mayor.
You're doing this is getting very eerie. By the way, I realize all the infrastructure, a lot of it, like utilities and stuff, are in the backyards in that particular area. So I could see AT&T digging back there. And, one of them did stuff in the front, so it's a little bit of both that we have.
Yeah. It's about planning appropriately for infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
You'd have rolled curbs in the alley so that the water can flow still, but you're not building full curbs. You're doing rolled curbs and a variety of other things. So.
Now, with this concept, do you have enough data from other parts of the country or whatever, of how this would sell during a recession?
That I do not, because the challenge, recession, 2008 recession is vastly different than pandemic recession.
Right.
And even if we were to dip down into a new recession because of employment situations, our housing market is still so strong in the fact that we have so much of a void of housing right now that even if you looked at during the pandemic recession, housing didn't move. The needle didn't move on that one. It still was hard. It actually picked up because of, or became more of a challenge because less units were being built. So I don't have the data points because any data points would be pre-2000 even, and those data points are a little bit,
And very geographically specific.
Exactly.
Geographic. And then you
De
have-
Pere is also very fortunate to be having 2 sought-after school districts, and so we're a little bit buoyed by that compared to what some other communities may be,
And you have the bridge
and a bridge.
coming.
What else do we have? Again, just discussion only. So, do you have some guidance here? Do you want us to give you some other direction?
No,
I think everyone's
if you-
okay with everything here.
really what it's coming down to is, are we sort of roughly on the right track? If we were to come in here and say, hey, absolutely not, that
Right.
too much multifamily, too much this. I did the pro forma numbers here just so everybody can sort of get a look at it. I don't know if I included it in your packet, but roughly you'd be looking at single-family residential about 80 units, duplex about 12 units, or 6 individual buildings, depending on how they're purchased and split. Townhomes, about 60 units of townhomes as shown here, and rental apartments, depending on how big you go, 2 stories, 3 stories, could be anywhere between 120 and 220 units.
A lot of units, people.
So you're looking at about a total unit count of 380 or 8.29 units per acre.
What was the number on the single family?
About 78 to 80, depending on how we split them up.
Okay.
Will there be a
Squeeze some
grocery
affordable
store and a
ones.
coffee shop?
That would be in the full traditional neighborhood development. We are, again, as I call it, T&D light at this point because it's, again, just trying to get back to the neighborhood style. Once we go to the east side and we start to look at the density that radiates from the southern bridge, that's when we talk about neighborhood level commercial.
Nice.
The wetland
Yep.
part of this project, I mean, when you have the kind of moisture that we've been getting here lately, I mean, does that potentially change things? Or?
No, moisture itself is one thing. When you have a assured delineator go out, they are looking at actually the wetland vegetation. So they're not just looking at wet spots. They're actually looking at what's growing there. and they're-
Cattails?
Yeah, they're classifying the actual vegetation. They're putting boundaries around it. You're typically going to get, if they're not assured, they'll go get concurrence from the DNR. If they are assured, they don't need concurrence from the DNR. That was done by McMahon. That was actually done by the family when they were selling it, and they gave us the data behind it, which is good. They didn't need to, but we have the data behind it. And those wetland delineations are good for 5 years. Yeah. So that one's valid. That was a 2022, 2023 wetland delineation.
Good. All right.
I
Everyone good?
like it.
All right. You've got the green light to move forward
Okay.
based on this group. So don't blow it now and say something else and just drop a big bomb.
Yeah, I want to buy one when you get to the east
I
side,
want to buy.
or else I'll have to move.
Done. All right, thank you. Item 4, discussion about site plans received since the April 2024 Plan Commission meeting and review of the status of recently approved development projects. Anything that you want to add? Anyone want to add on this? Any questions anyone has? I know it's in here, so. Doesn't seem like a lot of changes since the last time?
No,
Didn't seem like it.
no.
No, not a lot.
Not a lot.
A lot of stuff in revision stages, and a lot of stuff just kind of waiting. We'll be getting some new stuff coming in the near future, so pay attention.
St. Norbert coming along, you're getting some site plans and.
Yep, we got St. Norbert will be coming along. We'll have a couple more that'll be on the list. I know we can't talk about them because they're not on here. So,
Yep.
but stay tuned. Over the next few months, there'll be some more stuff popping on.
That was going to be my question. St. Norbert master plan without site plan. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, that one's done.
Yeah, the master.
We already did that.
Yeah, the master plan came through the council. The site plan will then stick within the staff level at the.
It'll be at staff, but you can see it.
You'll see it on the list here, but it won't come to
Okay.
won't come to the committee here.
I think I did see Chicago Street Swan Club, they're going to be paving
Yep.
a lot. Looks like they're starting to do that, so that's good. Alderperson Hanson.
Where's the utility work at for Caribou Coffee? Are there going to be any more street closures on Main Ave?
That I can't speak to it at this point. Sorry, that's they typically work with the engineering division on that one from a scheduling standpoint. So I just can't speak to it at this point. I can get more information for you, but I'm not going to try to. Speak.
I'm sure Eric will let us know if there's any more street
In the
closures.
Friday memos and
Yep.
stuff. I'll make sure, yeah, I think it'll be in there.
Yeah.
Typically,
that.
our work is done, or what he puts in the Friday memo is his construction update. That's a private development where people can do a street closure. I mean, there's a street closure right now on North Broadway for the home on North Broadway. You know, so there's street closures that are just done as a part of the process for development, and they get through that process through the state and through the local body here. So
And there was a lot of signage for the one on Main, wasn't it? That
There
we had to
was.
put the electronic
Yep.
boards up, but
Yep.
getting a heads up doesn't hurt either.
Yep.
yeah.
Are
It's a
they
small
building
building.
that Caribou
Yeah,
already?
yeah, they're
I thought
already
I
started.
saw-
Yeah, they're building it.
Yeah.
It's all framed
Yeah.
up.
It's
Yeah.
not a very large
That's what I
structure.
thought.
Yeah, they're
That's not an
No.
issue.
Yeah, it was
It'll be a
How would you want to,
drive-through.
how would you want to work in that place? And obviously it's very popular, but boy, that's small.
Like a food truck.
I get claustrophobia.
One
Yes.
person,
Yeah.
one person can go in
That's
there.
got to be it.
I was surprised when I drove by.
Yeah. Other questions or comments on any of this stuff? Thank you. Up next, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Oops, that was the wrong.
Second.
that one.
Motion by me, second by Alderperson Hanson. All those in favor, just say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're officially adjourned.